there's this weight that doesn't come from what's happening around you. It comes from what you already know. It comes from what you already know and haven't acted on. Because sometimes the hardest decisions aren't the ones we don't understand. They're the ones we understand clearly, but we aren't ready to face them. And you feel it subtly, in those moments when something doesn't sit right within you, in those conversations where we leave with a heaviness that we cannot quite explain. It's in those patterns that we notice about ourselves or in our lives, but we haven't fully named. And at first, it's easy to push it all aside and tell yourself that, yeah, I'm just overthinking. Maybe it's just the phase that I'm in. Maybe it's something that'll just shift and resolve itself on its own. And sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't. And that knowing doesn't leave. It sticks around. It stays, it lurks, and it waits. Because once we see something clearly, you can't completely unsee it. You might try to distract yourself, rationalize it, give it a little bit more time. But that emotion, that awareness is already there. And that awareness in and of itself has a weight of its own. Because now there's a subtle tension between what you know and what you're still allowing, between what you feel and what you continue to choose. And that tension is exhausting. And it's not because it's anything dramatic is happening, but it's because part of you is constantly holding the question, what am I going to do about this? And truth is, sometimes we delay those decisions. And it's not because we don't know what to do, but it's because we do. And we understand what that decision might cost. And change and discomfort and disappointment, loss maybe. Because even when something isn't right, it's still familiar. And familiarity it can feel so much safer than stepping into what's unknown. So we stay. And we wait, hoping something external to us will make the decision for us. That our circumstances will change, or that the other person will change. But that clarity will somehow become unavoidable. Because if the decision is made for you, you don't have to carry the responsibility of making it yourself. But waiting is also a choice. Staying is also a decision, even when it doesn't feel like one. Because time keeps moving, whether you decide or not. And the longer you stay in something that doesn't align, the heavier it can become. It doesn't always feel like it's in those earth-shattering type kind of ways. And sometimes it just feels like a lingering fatigue. It feels like a sense of being stuck, that you're not fully present in your own life. Because part of your energy is always tied up in a decision that you haven't made. This isn't about rushing. Some things for real do require more time. They require more space and reflection. But there is a difference between allowing time for clarity and avoidance of what you already understand. And you often already know the difference. You feel it. That subtle knowing that you keep returning to. The one that just jumps into your brain when things get quiet. The one you sometimes try not to listen to. Because you know that once you fully acknowledge it, movement becomes harder to avoid. And movement can be, oh my God, so uncomfortable. But so is staying in something that no longer fits. I'm not in any way implying that there is a perfect path here, that there is no decision without consequence. But there is something to consider. Consider and understand that avoiding a decision doesn't prevent change. It just delays it. And sometimes the most difficult step is just simply admitting to yourself, yeah, I already know. Not what you're going to do next. Just that you understand what that decision is asking of you. And that honesty, even before action, can shift something. Because once you stop pretending you don't see it, you begin to move differently. You become more aware of what aligns and what doesn't with you. You begin to prepare yourself for whatever comes next. And slowly, the distance between knowing and acting starts to close. Not in one fell swoop, but gradually. Until one day, the decision that once felt impossible becomes something you can't ignore, and you're finally ready to make. So sit with yourself there and continue traveling.